I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you see me?
We can see you.
Okay, very good. Well,
Visioning.
okay, well, I appreciate the opportunity to join all of you. I don't appreciate the opportunity to follow Sarah. She is so full of energy, and I'm afraid I'm going to put y'all to sleep after her lively and very informative discussion. Thank you, Sarah. I am Sam Scroggins. I'm the division's uh, visioning coordinator for this current year. Uh, Back in uh, July or late June, when Jack was uh, named our district governor for the year, he set a very strong set of objectives for visioning, and that was to get every club done while he was in office. Well, Jack, I hate to tell you this, but that's going to be very difficult to accomplish, but we're getting ready to get into it in a very good start. The main thing that has held us up a little bit for the past 4 months is waiting for the zone district developing team who have been working on Vision 2.0 to get some of their work wrapped up. And actually, they're still doing pilots and still finalizing. I think next Saturday there is a conference, and I think they're going to formally roll out Visioning 2.0. Our district became involved in visioning back in 2017, and when Ted and Lee, I guess Lee was going out, Ted was coming in as district governor. Both of them grabbed the bull by the horns and said, "We really need to get our district into good standing uh, with strategic plans, and the route to get those strategic plans, the first major step is to know where you want to go. If you don't know where you're going to go, then how are you going to know when you get there?" So that's what visioning is really all about. So I'm going to turn on my shared screen right now and see if we can get through this 2 hour presentation in 25 more minutes. And hopefully everyone can see the starting screen.
Yes.
Um, there were about 2,000, I'm sorry, about a dozen clubs who, beginning in 2017, participated in the visioning process. There are a few more in 2018. So hopefully, many of these clubs are moving well ahead in achieving their strategic plans and their strategic goals. Some may need a refresher course, and with Visioning 2.0, it's changed a bit. And that's what I'm really going to concentrate on today is what that structure of Visioning 2.0 looks like. And we'll compare it a little bit to the original Visioning program. We're not alone in this. Our Rotary International has established their own vision, and that's together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. So they're not asking us to do anything that they haven't done as well. What visioning is all about is trying to match the Rotary's 4 areas of strategic priorities and objectives. The framework really lines up with the international action plan. I'm sorry, I have a little frog in my throat. Those priorities are to increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance participation, and increase our ability to adapt. We heard a really good discussion on increasing our ability to adapt and increasing our impact this morning in Floyd's discussion, where the infrastructure that's in place to handle polio plus also provides great infrastructure into place with handling other world pandemics and other situations as well. So that's the kind of thing that Rotary International is really pushing for in its priorities and objectives. Increase our impact, eradicate polio, and leverage the legacy, expand our reach, increase Rotary's appeal to new members, and make the outside world much more aware of what our impact and what our brand is all about. And a lot of what Sarah was talking about earlier is to that point exactly. It helps our membership know where we're going, but more importantly, I think it helps the rest of the world to know where we are, what we're doing, and we can move on. Um, this is not new by any means. Again, I think the whole idea of visioning started back in 2006 with a club in Wisconsin. Since then, there are more than 150 districts that have been trained in the visioning process throughout the US, Canada, into the European area, UK, Sweden, and Norway. Uh, there are over 2,000 trained facilitators. The facilitators are the folks like me that whose job it is to go out and meet with the district clubs within the district to help those clubs extract their own ideas, extract their own vision of where they want to be in that 3 year time frame. So there are over 2,000 of us trained really around the world with Rotary to go through that visioning experience itself. The visioning process and outcomes, there are 5 questions that have to be answered anytime you're trying to develop a strategic plan. Uh, First, where are we? Who are we? Well, we're Rotary Club. In my case, I'm a Rotary Club equipment. Where are we now? What are we? What's our current situation? Or what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What do we know? What do we not know? And so forth. And then finally, where do we want to be? And that's where Visioning 2.0 or visioning comes into place is to help us decide where we want to be in that 3 year time frame. Afterwards, the steps that are take place afterwards are then determining how we're going to get where we want to go. And then finally, and most importantly, how are we going to know when we've actually arrived? To prepare for a visioning event, the club itself will need to name an event coordinator. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour block of time that is necessary. That needs to be scheduled about a month ahead of time because there's negotiations that have to take place to make sure that we can put together a team of 4 people that are required from the facilitator's point of view, and to make sure that you have plenty of time to find an appropriate location. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We want to see a minimum of 12 club members involved as participants in the visioning process. We want to make sure that that includes the club's directors, its president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and the committee leaders from that club. But again, we want to see up to somewhere around 18 is where it get anything beyond about 18 people. It gets a little bit more difficult to get through in that 3.5 to 4 hour timetable. It should be a combination. It should be a cross section of the club, a combination of new people and seasoned Rotarians, a combination of men and women, a combination that reflects the diversity of the club and so forth. And finally, there's a $50 discharge that the district makes back to the clubs to help pay for the materials. And that's directly for the materials that are used during the course of a 4-hour visioning session. The event setting itself, it needs to be a quiet area that has good acoustics and room. In our case now, and not before now, but we have to be conscientious about social distancing as well in that room. So again, anything between 12 and 15 or 12 and 18 people is going to take a fairly good size room but we must do that. It should have a U-shaped seating arrangement, so tables and chairs spaced out in some sort of U shape. There needs to be a place for a video screen, provisions for a laptop computer or some kind of computer with a projector. We need 2 or 3 bare walls where we can temporarily hang our chart materials and so forth. And then 3.5, 4 hours, people get thirsty and hungry, and a lot of the clubs in the past have fed before we actually start the visioning session. For example, if we have a session from 6 to 9:30, maybe at 5:30 there's a meal or light snacks or something, and it's very important to have beverages available as well. And we actually did experience an alcoholic location a couple of years ago, and we lost a couple of our Rotarians during the course of the session who got more enchanted by what's going on in the bar than what we were doing in the discussion. So non-alcoholic beverages available, please. The facilitators. There are 4 facilitators in each visioning session. There's a team leader, someone who does the idea extraction. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And 2 people who do the writing. What we try to make sure and what we need to make sure is that if you're in somebody in, say, Area 9, which is the area around Wood County, that our facilitators come from a different area. We don't want to cross pollinate the ideas that much. We really want the ideas to come out of your own club. So we try to bring those out of a different area. All of the facilitators will have completed facilitator training. And we went through training in 2017. I think there were around 24 folks in our district that went through that training. And probably out of that 24, I believe there are around a dozen who have actually participated in visioning events. So we want to make sure that they're all trained. And with Visioning 2.0, there's going to need to be a little bit of retraining of the facilitators as well. And I'll get into that when we get to the end of the presentation. Another change that we've seen with Visioning 2.0, in the past when the facilitators departed, everybody applauded and said, great work, great work. The facilitators left, and that was it. It was back completely in the hands of the club to follow up and make sure that they were carrying through with taking their vision on into strategic plans and action plans and so forth. Well, it's changing up a bit. Now there's going to be a formal follow-up by the facilitators, and it may just be the team leader over the effort to see how a club is doing in about 6 months. So that's a little bit of a very positive change, I think, that's going to be helpful. The visioning process itself, I've given you kind of the mechanics of it. The visioning process itself is 3 major steps. First of all, there is a Rotary visioning questionnaire that needs to be completed by everyone in the club if possible. Now, this is an online questionnaire. It's fairly simple. There are about 10 or 11 questions in that questionnaire. It probably takes 8 to 10 minutes to fill this out. It's online. It'll probably be using the Google Forms, although we're also looking at SurveyMonkey, but it's a multiple choice question, very easy to fill out. And the purpose of that, again, if you go back and look at that, uh, the original chart that I showed you, the 5 questions, we need to know where we are. We need to know who we are today, what we are as a club. And that's what this advanced survey is going to do. We will look at it, and the answers that we see will be anonymous. There'll be 5 people have said A, 7 people have said B, 9 people have said, and so forth. So we won't know who said what, but we will know what the spirit of the overall club is in answering where you are today. A copy of the, again, that summary results will go to the club president a week ahead of time. If we can get the survey done, promptly when we set the schedule, a week ahead of time, we'll give it to the club president. He can share it with the leaders so they'll know. Again, this is what the club believes we are going into this process. Also in advance, and this is a change from the original visiting program, but in advance there is a writing exercise, and that writing exercise is probably going to take 20 to 30 minutes to complete. And that experience is to encourage the Rotarians who are going to participate in the meeting to put themselves 3 years into future and to think about not what they're doing today, but what they would if they were the club's leader, if they were in charge and could tell the club where to go, where would they want to be in this 3 year time frame? And again, it all boils around those 4 areas of strategic priority and objectives that Rotary International has. There's a couple of additions to that that concentrate on fundraising. How would you like to raise funds? How much money would you like to be able to raise? And also your contributions to the Rotary Foundation and Polio Plus. So those are a little bit above and beyond the 4 strategic objectives of Rotary International. So that is done in advance. Formally, that was done during the first 20 to 30 minutes of the visioning session. So that saves a lot of time. And more, I think more importantly, it gives the people that are going to participate more time to think their way through and mull over, where they would really like to be. So we're asking for those types of or that writing question to be submitted to us at least a week before the actual visioning session. And then the final step itself is when we gather in this 3.5 to 4 hour session for the formation of the club's vision. And what we're trying to accomplish there is to relate those ideas to the strategic priorities, to make sure that we've covered the fundraising and so forth, and to get those ideas out on paper. At the end of that process, there'll be some voting and so forth. So the next couple of slides are going to just recap what I've told you. The advanced preparation, we want the club visioning coordinator to arrange a time and a place, at least have it all nailed down within about 2 weeks in advance of the event. We want to know a week in advance of the event that we have at least 12 people participating. if we have a good sized club and there's any less than 12, it's just not going to be effective. So we need to make sure that we have at least 12 folks that are going to be available. And again, we want to make sure that the president, vice president, president elect, especially, and club secretary and so forth, along with the major committee leaders are there. The questionnaire, this Rotary Visioning questionnaire, we want that completed online. And again, it only takes a few minutes, about a week in advance of the presentation. And then the written exercise needs to be completed by the time of the visioning session itself. This is not turned in. This does not have to leave the hands of the author. It's their tool to help sort out their thoughts in advance and to get those thoughts into very candid, quick phrases. With the written exercise, again, there's mental time travel involved. We have to be able to imagine ourselves 3 years well into the future. And as Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, look 3 years into the future, then you can achieve it. We want the people that are participating to think out of the box. And remember, throughout this process, there are no bad ideas. So we're going to be shooting those ideas out. We're going to be drafting them on some chart paper, and we'll be looking at them closely as we go through the latter half of the event. We want you to write those ideas down as if you were the club leader. Again, it's where you would take the club uh, if you were in charge, if you had complete control of where the club was going to end up in 3 years. We want these to be action verbs. We want it to be past tense. Again, we're 3 years ahead. We're looking at what has accomplished. We have accomplished in that 3 year period. So it's we achieved, we gained, we created, and so forth. And again, the facilitators are not going to be looking for details. I know in the past we've had some people that wanted to take uh, 2 minutes to discuss and explain their idea. That's not really what we're after. We're after the bullet point headline details, the ideas. The details will come later as you're putting together the actual plans themselves. Once uh, we have all those, again, as we come into the meeting itself, those ideas will be down on everybody's sheet of paper. So we'll begin the session basically with the extraction process, and that's where we work through each of the four categories plus uh, projects and fundraising, and work through each of those categories that you've completed in the written process. Ask for those ideas to come out, and the scribes will record those ideas on flip charts. And those flip charts, once we complete a session, the flip charts will be uh, taped up on the wall, and we'll come back to them later on. So once we get through all that process, then we'll move into a voting activity. Again, the important thing in the extraction is bullet points, short tweets, hashtag type uh, uh, statements, and so forth. And that we want to make sure that everybody in the session gets a chance to input their ideas. And again, we're not looking for details.
Sam, you've got about 5 more minutes.
Am I running out?
Got about five more.
5 more. Then we'll go through a voting process, and then there's actually 2 rounds of voting that take place. The first round is just to narrow down the choices, and there's a pretty cool way of doing that voting. The second round of voting, which will take place afterwards is to really develop the top choices in each of those categories. And those choices then all are summarized. And I just realized I'm not keeping up on here. Those choices are then summarized, and one of the facilitators will feed back to the club what the club has said is its consensus vision that has been developed during the course of this session. And again, that's what your club has determined that it wants to achieve over the next 3 years. So that wraps up kind of the front part of the visioning. And at this juncture in the past, the club or the visioner, the facilitators have walked away, but we're moving on to approach more specifics in how we get there. And we get there by creating a master plan. And the master plan is a set of specific goals towards those vision, determine which goals can be accomplished over the 3 years, how they'll be accomplished, and decide who's going to be in charge of those goals. So that constitutes a master plan. It's for each of your vision ideas that there are specific goals to get you to those ideas. The action plans themselves are the tasks needed to accomplish those goals. We need to know who's going to do what and when they're going to get it done. And we're going to need to know what the outcome is at the end that allows us to know when we've actually achieved that goal. Now, this is just a brief look at what the action plans look like. Again, we know which goal we're working on, what actions have to be taken to lead us to that goal, who's going to lead, who's going to help, what resources are going to be needed, what the start date is, what the end date, and then how are we going to know, finally, how are we going to know when we've actually arrived. So for each of the goals, each of the vision goals that are defined, this is going to be required. Now, what we're going to do during the course of the visioning session is we're going to pick out one of your goals and we're going to break into a couple of teams, and those teams will spend 15 or 20 minutes trying to build out a skeleton action plan. So we're actually going to take you through the process so that at least one of the goals, maybe we will have two teams working on it, and we can compare notes on those to see how the two teams have come together. To close it off, the most important things is that we're going to take the vision, turn that into a strategic plan. There will be a follow up on that to set specific goals, to set action plans, and then finally, the team itself, our facilitating team, will get back with you in about 6 months to see where you stand, if you need some additional coaching to bring it up to speed. Here's my last slide. Let's hear some applause. To schedule a visioning event, and we're going to start the actual events after December the 1st. We actually have the Club of Atlanta that is already scheduled for December the 8th. And that'll be an evening session on December the 8th. I have one facilitator lined up to assist me. I need a couple more facilitators. So those of you that are experienced, expect me to call you fairly soon and see if you can join me. So at any rate, you can contact me at this email address, or you can go to the District 5830 website, look under the District Committees tab, and both Sarah and I show up fairly prominently if you need to get in touch with us. There will be a first session of training tentatively scheduled for November the 19th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And this is going to be a Visioning 2.0 training update. It will be on Zoom, and it is for those who went through the training in 2017. We're going to then have another grassroots training, and Jack, I'll listen to your schedule closely. I don't think we have a conflict, but this will be on Saturday, January the 16th, from 9 to 2, and we'll do it here in Quitman at First United Methodist Church, which we have plenty of room for to spread out and social distancing, and we'll have some food and snacks available. But this is for grassroots training, and I want to all the assistant district governors who have not been through facilitator training. We really encourage you to come. There may be others that would like to be participants as a facilitator. It, you also just get in touch with me again back at this email address shown above. Otherwise, mark your calendars for 9 to 2 on January the 16th, and we'll do the grassroots training. That's it for me, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Sam. And we look forward to working with you in the visioning process.